people who listen to the podcast are always interested in fat loss, body composition. What was your first approach? And, again, so this is the, say, potentially not the elite warfighter, but what we would consider more of the general population recreational athlete. Would that be fair to say?
Yes.
What did you do for them? What was the approach?
Well, let me go ahead and tell on myself. My first approach didn't work. And that was, I just gave them information. I have all this knowledge. I'm going to dump it on you.
That's a rookie mistake.
Rookie mistake. That was Lieutenant Barringer, brand new. I was like, I have all this knowledge out of the schoolhouse. And I noticed I started seeing the same faces coming back. And I'm like, this is not working. I need to figure this out. So how I did that was I would look at that individual soldier and try to find out what resonated with them. For instance, if I had a chief warrant officer coming in to lose weight, I'd be like, what? So warrant officer is usually a specialist in the military. They're either your pilots or, maybe work in food service. So, and a lot of them were prior enlisted. So they're going to be a little older. They're going to be kind of, more experienced, more seasoned tactical athlete, if you will. More mature, if you will. And so I would talk to him and be like, hey, Chief, do you want to play with your grandkids? Well, certainly. Well, hey, if you go down this road, it's going to affect your ability to play with your grandkids and be present. And so then that would resonate with them. And then we could coach them up and we start talking nutrition. Whereas the young kids, the specialists, the privates, that doesn't resonate with them. They're not thinking far ahead. So I remember the first day I kind of clicked with that was when you're flagged for being overweight, you can't get promoted.
And are they using BMI? Are they using body fat percentages?
Body measurements, so tape test.
Oh, perfect.
So
perfect.
So they're getting taped, and so their waist is above, right?
Is it a waist, hip, or just waist circumference? Do you remember?
So now we're going to just a waist circumference. Back then, it was neck and waist.
Okay.
For the males, and then for the females, it was neck, waist, and hips at the area where the buttocks protrudes the most. Like that's by the reg. And so they can't get promoted. They're flagged. They can't get promoted. So I would calculate how much money they're losing by not getting promoted. And I would go into them and be like, hey, is this worth $3,000 to you? And they'd be like, what are you talking about? This is free. I'm like, no. You're basically paying this a month because you're not taking care of your nutrition. Are you ready to take care of your nutrition? And we'll get you that money. And then with them, it would resonate. So again, it was finding, and I'm sure in your practice, you do the same thing. Like what resonates with people, because nutrition knowledge really usually isn't the culprit, right? If I put broccoli and pizza in front of somebody and say, hey, which one you should probably eat most of the time, they're going to know. But it's more finding those motivating factors.
Did you design diets? And if you did, how did you prioritize macronutrients? If you were to lay something out for people, how did you do it to get the maximum amount of fat loss while maintaining lean tissue? I say lean tissue because obviously we're not directly measuring skeletal muscle at this time.
Yes. No. And it's going to be very similar to Dr. Bill Campbell's is I start with protein. I like to start with protein for the satiety, the same reasons, and as far as I want to preserve that lean muscle mass, particularly in warfighters. And then from that, we build around. Now, I'll still keep the carbohydrates a little higher just because of the tasks that they have to do. But a lot of it is, I would use something as simple as the plate method, where I would, cut a plate into quarters. I'd be like, all right, put your protein in one corner. If you're going to do a hard like ruck or run, half your plate's carbohydrates. If it's not a hard ruck or run day, you're just lifting weights, a quarter of it, and then put a non-starchy vegetable in there.
Perfect. And
just give them, simple tools like that, because most of these, particularly young soldiers, they're at a dining facility. So, what's their tray going to look like? And so I would give them, kind of do it that way.
And on the back end, did you calculate, for example, if you were to give them a protein recommendation, grams per kg, did you do that? Did you think about it?
Yes. So anywhere from, basically about, 0.8 per pound, because I wouldn't do kgs because, but 0.8 to 1. And then folks that are going to be in per pound, which
is double the RDA, which I want to circle back in terms of nutrition got its footing from the warfighter.
Right.
And
so going higher protein is especially in those tactical athletes in a caloric deficit, is shown to preserve lean muscle mass. And Dr. Stefan Pasiakos, Dr. Jessica Gwen at USARIUM, they've done great work. Dr. Arnie Ferrando have done great work. They've done particularly studies where they've put soldiers in caloric deficits of, up to like 30%, deficit. And they show that when they take in more protein, they're able to preserve more lean muscle mass. And so based on that's why I'm going to do, and then along with the satiety factor.
And what about carbohydrates in terms of how much do you recommend per pound?
Okay. So for that, it's usually, and I don't know if I can do the conversion per pound in my head, but it's around, around,
I will not ask you to do math in your head.
5 to 6 grams per kilogram of body weight for most people. You can go up to, I've went up to 10 or 12, but that's in like ultra runners. So it varies on kind of what they're doing. But for most people, probably around that 6, if you more active, 8 grams per kilogram of body weight.
And of course, the final macronutrient fat, is it just whatever falls within there?
That's how I would fill in. Then whatever's left, I'm doing fat. But then, I'm obviously prioritizing monounsaturated fat. I want some, olive oil. I want some fatty fish, get the omega-3s in there. And then avoiding as much as possible, trans fats. Even though I know trans fats are supposed to be banned, they're still out there. You can still find them in particularly the meals ready to eat.
And especially on post.
Right.
They're everywhere.
And so just educating soldiers on that, and then respecting saturated fat as well. But besides that, that's, pretty much kind of how I build the diet.